Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on Django apps. We're going to continue on a new project, actually new but old. We're actually going to do a cloud migration. So the focus tonight is on getting an app that is currently hosted on Heroku, and as you can see over here from my to-do, oh man, I'm really bad at this. We're going to get off of Heroku. That's the plan. The goal is to simplify my software stack for this particular application. This is an app that's serving real users, but I want something simpler to manage. It's also going to be a little bit cheaper in the long run again as well. But there's some steps to do to get us on that journey. So we're going to get into it. This is the homeschool app. It's a homeschool scheduling application. And I created some issues here that we can start to follow through on to get going. So that is the plan. If you want, you're welcome to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. Oh, that's funny. My little comment didn't seem to go through to the chat. I don't know. Whatever. You can ask me on those subjects. That's what I'm here for. Otherwise, we'll just get into this and go from there. Let's actually poke just to make sure. Yeah, it's looking like I am online. So we'll get to it eventually. So we've got this homeschool applications deployed to Heroku. It's got a bunch of build packs. There's a big part of our process that's building some static files and doing all sorts of things. I've kind of classified the major things that we need to do. And actually, to get started, I was working off stream. Unlike my other project that I do on stream, I don't commit for this one to do everything. Wow, it's not the spot I want to be. Online. So let's get over to this project area and pull it down and get you up to speed. So this is the homeschool application. I was working on a different machine, so I should be able to pull this and it will change quite a bit. So with all the stuff that I'm pulling. So this past week, I have been working on preparing this homeschool app for this migration to DigitalOcean. And from previous streams, last couple of weeks, you can actually see these tabs as I'm very quickly speeding through them. I've been working on this demo project. It's Kamal Demo. And I've been trying to make sure that I can deploy to DigitalOcean and that I can use this Kamal tool to actually do the deployment. Kamal comes from the people who make Ruby on Rails, Basecamp. It's 37 Signals are the folks behind this, and they deploy their stuff to bare metal. They got off the cloud, but you can also use it to use with cloud VMs, which is exactly what I want to do. And the theory that I have going with this is that it will enable me to work on this project and have a single machine that I need to worry about, but I can deploy safely because what we'll be doing is building Docker container images, just Docker images, I guess. So we'll build Docker images, we'll push those up to a registry, and then when we deploy the server that will actually be listening for these deployments, we'll pull down from the registry, get the image, and create containers and do all that jazz. But there's a bunch of work that needs to happen to actually get off of Heroku. I've been working on this particular app for a good number of years, and the process has built up over time. There's just stuff with this app that needs to run. You can look through this list and you can see some of these are smaller than others. So there's a blog that's built with Hugo. There's some documentation that's built with Sphinx. Those need to get baked into the image and so that they're usable. The same thing with the JavaScript assets that were here. We have to bake that into the actual Docker image that we want. So this will prepare the image. Then there are other things that we have to factor in, like how do we do local development from here on out, and what do we do about cron jobs that need to move off, and that's the way that this particular app was doing background work. But the biggest thing, without a doubt, is going to be, the biggest thing I suspect will be how do we migrate the database. In the process of migrating to DigitalOcean, I also want to convert from Postgres to SQLite. Let me comment on that for a minute because I think it's like, why would you do that? The app that I'm using here, the homeschool app, which lives currently at the schooldesk.app. So this is the product that we're actually trying to migrate. This is hosted on Heroku. It's all set up, and we want to migrate this. and it doesn't get a ton of usage, frankly. Like, I haven't done a stellar job of marketing it. That's on me, but it does serve a handful of customers. The benefit of having not a gigantic wide customer base is that the overall database in production now is not very big. Like, I checked it the other day, it's literally 37 megabytes. So this totally will fit into a much smaller and more contained database with SQLite that we can deploy to that server, the one machine, the VPS machine, virtual private server, and get a bunch of benefit out of it. The primary benefit that my users will feel is that queries will be way faster because we don't have to go over a network. So what they'll get as a benefit is suddenly everything will go extremely fast. It's not a super write-heavy application. There is some number of writing to it, which is what SQLite is going to be slower at. But as far as reading, it will be pretty fast. And there are some things that I was not able to optimize in my queries. So there's some slow pages on there that I will periodically get messages from Sentry of like, hey, you've got an n+1 over here. And like, it's a complicated query, so it's not super easy to make that all work. But by switching to SQLite, we should get some massive performance boost, whether or not we have n+1 queries. So that's really my goal here. So that's going to be maybe the biggest one. How do we do that safely? And with that, how do we do database backups? How do we make sure that this is a safe migration? I want to be really careful with a cloud migration that I don't lose customer data. I'll have to take a maintenance downtime to do this properly, but I want to make sure that the data is not lost and there's an appropriate backup strategy. So that's broadly what's going to go into this cloud migration project here. And by the time we're done, we should have this on a DigitalOcean droplet at like $6 a month, maybe, versus the 15 or 16 that I'm currently paying for Heroku, which should really help with costs because, again, I have 2 or 3 active users, and one of them is my wife, so she's not paying for this. So to at least make the service net out to not losing money, it'd be nice to save $10 a month. That will add up for a small user base. Okay, so let's focus first on getting the image into the proper state. So I took an image that I was working with this Kamal demo thing, and we can get rid of this now. We've got our homeschool app up here. Why are you loading this? Load the homeschool page. Get out of here. That is so weird. That is loading that last thing that it tried to do. Not what I want. Projects, homeschool. Okay. So what happens if I load a new tab? There we go. I don't know. That was strange. So I've got an app here that is a Docker image, and let's take a peek at it. So this is the Docker image. It's going to build from Python 3.12. I've switched from using pip, and I'm now using UV. So I've got UV is like the latest hotness here in the Python space, and I've got a setup here that is pretty reasonable, but there's a bunch of factors here, and one of our issues is actually make local development work to make all of this work well. In fact, now that I think about it, one of the things that we're going to struggle with maybe as we get in the code for this, which I don't know how much we will, but if I bring up, let's say, core apps, notice it says I don't even know where Django is. So that's weird. How do we, in order to make, my editor needs to be aware of the virtual environment. And I guess, all right, so switching to UV creates a virtual environment directory, or it should. But I haven't updated that on this server. So let's start by getting rid of the old virtual environment that we had. We're switching tools. We're getting off of using straight up Python venv, and we're using UV. So UV wants to build a virtual environment locally if it can. So maybe we should start by trying UV run manage.py, and then we'll just start up a Django shell. And we don't have UV. Okay. So do we have pip X on this machine? I don't remember. Nope. Okay. So we're going to do an install, I guess. We'll do it from, we should be able to brew install this. Problem with my, so I have another machine that I tried to brew install, and the Mac OS is not supported anymore. So you're like compiling everything from source. And I tried to brew install UV, and it went down to like compiling LLVM. It was really bad. So there's some real advantages to having a machine that's recent enough that you get the binary package version, so you don't have to make this yourself. Because UV, if you're unaware, like it's a fairly new tool, but if you're unaware, UV is a tool that is built with Rust. So it's actually a compiled tool. It's not actually written in Python. Thankfully, that was really fast. Is it there? Yeah, cool. So now we have UV available to us. But if we were on an older operating system, it could have taken a bunch to brew install that. So we've got UV. We should be able to say UV run and run our manage shell here. And it's because what can I show you? I can show you the PyProject file. So the difference between UV and say my previous version of this is like currently what I have, and actually I can show both because I have to be able to operate and be able to continue to deploy to Heroku and also prepare the site to migrate to DigitalOcean. So I got to keep two systems around, and I'm making some of these changes at the same time. So it's just a reality of I need to be able to do both things. So we can have a compare and contrast session while we're doing this. And the way I was managing my packages was with a requirements.in file here. And the contrast with UV is that it manages dependencies in a TOML file. So if you look and pay attention, you'll see actually these are really close. They have a slightly different sort order because capitalization and yada, 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 stuff like that. But all of our main dependencies are put up here, and UV has the benefit, kind of like NPM, is you can declare development dependencies and put those in a separate stack. So these are the kind of things that are only needed for development. Now, what I don't know is like when I'm doing my package install, am I truly not installing these development only packages? I'm not confident of that. And now that I look at this, I didn't actually even finish this process. So I've got some development tools that I absolutely need that are currently not installed. So maybe we get to that point where we can see this, run tests, and make sure that we're working with this UV workflow. And then we can move on to some of the Docker packaging stuff. So we have our requirements.in file. That's not actually what Heroku wants to install. Instead, Heroku wants to install from a requirements.txt file. And the way that this is generated is actually, you can see at the top, we're using a pip compile command. So you say pip compile and you give the requirements.in file, and then it creates all the packages that are needed. It's called the transitive closure, is the fancy name. And essentially it just means every package that I directly depend upon for my app plus all of its dependencies. That's what it is. So UV has two concepts that are similar, except the difference is that their dependencies for this tool end up in this PyProject TOML, which is like the standard file that a lot of the Python ecosystem is centralizing around. And then the what amounts to the requirements.txt file is instead in this uv.lock file, which is a TOML file as well, but it has a bunch of extra metadata, and you're not meant to modify this file in the same way that you're not meant to modify this file. You're not supposed to touch either of these. Both of these are code generated. But if you want to like understand from like a symmetry point of view, what are the different files, it's requirements.in becomes pyproject.toml, and requirements.txt becomes uv.lock. Okay, so then over when we're actually like running this command, what we saw here was UV is very into creating a virtual environment on your behalf. They don't want to mess with system packages at all, so they default to creating a virtual environment. And the big difference is that it calls it .venv. That's really the gist of it. So we can run uv run manage.py shell, and it will create a virtual environment. And then from here, I can do Django-y stuff from from Django, HTTP import, HTTP request. All the standard stuff that you would expect is now possible because this stuff has been installed through the virtual environment. The important aspect here, though, is that I need to be able to run my editor, and my editor has a language, an LSP server, language server protocol server, that knows how to understand and interpret Python. But in order to understand it and be able to navigate to the right packages, it needs to know where those packages are. And if these packages are stuffed in this .venv directory, we have to make that accessible to the language server. So probably the easiest way that I can think of is going to be activating this venv directory, which is kind of outside of what UV wants you to do. In fact, UV, let's see, what do they have another command that could make it so that we could run? How are we going to give visibility to my editor? This is the question I'm trying to answer. So I have a way in mind. I don't know if it's the right way. So let's take a look at UV pip, which is kind of the pip ecosystem of stuff. Pip compile sync uninstall blah 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 blah. Okay, that's not really what I want. So I'm going to do this for now until I understand that there's a better way. I'm going to take the virtual environment directory, and still a standard virtual environment directory, it should be, and I'm going to activate it. So now I've got my virtual end directory, and I should be able to open up NeoVim and then go to anything, homeschool, core views, or I don't know, something like that. And I shouldn't get any complaints from the LSP. So there's no squiggly lines underneath anything now. All of my dependencies are here and appropriately configured. Okay, so let's go back to no, not there. Let's go back to the Pi project, and let's get the rest of the dependencies, because the other dependencies that I needed. So check this out. I was already doing some of this manually anyway. I was keeping my requirements in the actual app requirements in this requirements.in file, which is the things that this needs to care about. And then I was keeping my development requirements over here in a separate file. So I think what I can do, and especially because this is going to be just development now, I can probably delete this file after I'm done, is all of these development tools, we essentially need to add them to this dev dependencies section. So to do that, we can go over here, and from this tab, we can say, the way this works is, instead of saying pip install, whoops, I'm noticing that my Stream Deck is saying don't have people anymore. Does it still see me? It still says it's gone. Okay, Stream Deck just died, I guess. So we can say, instead of pip install, you do UV add and remove are kind of the concepts you need to know. So there's an add thing. There's a lot of options, but one of these options is --dev. So we can do UV add --dev, and then we want to say coverage.toml. Coverage with the toml extra is what we want to do here, because I think that's how we get the right configuration, ability to read it out of a toml configuration file. So if we do that, it's gonna calculate what dependencies go in here, and you can see it's updated the UV lock, and it's now added coverage toml to my dev dependencies. Since this file will go away, let's use this, let's delete these things as we go. So Django test plus. So again, we'll just go to this command, and we'll do Django test plus. I could probably pick the specific versions, but I was already using Dependabot, so the version should be fairly up to date. So I don't feel the need to specify them. If we look, yeah, this says 224, and we've got greater than or equal to 224. So I think we're already in the right shape here. Then we want, let's see, factory boy. And we're just going to go through the list. This shouldn't take too long. Actually, well, there's a way with UV add to use a -r flag and say use this particular requirements file. And the question is, do I want to do that? Because it's going to like lock in specific dependencies at a specific version. And maybe that's okay. So let's do that. So instead of wasting our time with this, let's say requirements dev and just let them add it all at once. All the stuff that we care about, blah, blah, blah. All right. Unfortunately, it failed for the stupid reason that can't find the graphiz library. That's something that's like local to my machine. Frankly, I'm tired of dealing with the error, so what we're going to do is we're going to delete pygraphiz. It's just not worth it. So I used to like bring up a model diagram pretty frequently of what is in this app, and maybe I'll fix it someday. I just don't care enough right now. That's not really the priority. I can show you all with some code, and I don't have to do that. So we're getting all of our stuff here. That added all of these things as our toolset. Including rough, which is, yeah, it's fine. Okay. So coming over here, now you can see our dev dependency list has basically bumped with all of the things that were here. There were some things that were in my main requirements list that should have been considered development dependencies, but I put them in the wrong spot, I think, including like type annotation stuff. So yeah. So now we can delete that file, and now we've got our UV stuff set up. And now we need to update some of the makefile targets. So I've used some common makefile targets to do some testing stuff, and this is where we need to update some things. So I'm not going to use this graph command anymore. I'm going to leave it because it's fine. But I think the thing that we need to do now is with some of these commands, need to prefix them with UV. So it's now going to be like UV run, and then you give it the command that you want. Let's try that. See if we can actually run coverage checking. So it's going to run, boo. So Sentry DSN. Okay, it's been a while since I worked on this project. It's been so long apparently that I don't even have it set up locally anymore to work with this. So I need to go into an env file, and we need to take DSN example here and fill in a value in the env file. Because I don't remember if there are any secrets here, I'm going to put on the secret screen for a minute. So I'm coming into here, I'm going into the area where the Sentry DSN stuff should be, and I'm pasting in the value. Yeah, there's definitely some things that look like keys that I probably should not be sharing. So that's all I'm doing, is updating that. Then I can bring this back. So we're looking at the example env file. So I took this line right here and I pasted it into the env file. That's all. So let's try it again, see if we can run the stuff. And while that's running, it's reminding me what we need another issue in here. So migrate to environs. I'll explain that more later. And what else? Make local development work. Okay, let's do as well migrate CI to use UV. That's another issue. So I want to like prepare everything to be set up for a VPS and on this new tool chain that we have, and then like get the whole migration going, including essentially deploying out to what I would like to be a real server on DigitalOcean. Hey, Musio, thanks for subscribing. Appreciate that. So get everything going out there, but not actually cut over DNS. So I want to be able to test it out and kind of prove that it all works. We might have to fiddle with a couple of settings that kind of control allowed hosts so that we can just hit it from the IP address directly. So there'll be some stuff in there that we have to fiddle with. But I want to prove that all of this is going to happen before we actually switch this over. I don't want to I want to be so confident in the migration that when it actually comes time to do the migration where I take the site offline, and while it's offline, I'm moving from, copying the data over from one place to another. And I want that to be as smooth as possible to the point where I will probably end up writing a run book of here's what is the exact steps, the exact sequence that needs to be done in order to make this happen smoothly. Because it's very important that I minimize that time. Again, I don't have a lot of users, but I still want to treat this with the same dignity that it deserves of this is an important process and I want to make sure that I do it right. So that's what's important from my mind. So we've got these things. There was one more that was slipping my mind. It'll come back to me later. Okay. So we're kind of working through, where are we working through right now? We're sort of working on 12.06 at the moment. Make local development work without Heroku tools. Sort of true, but not totally true. Oh, interesting. I've got new stuff here, and well, interesting. A deprecation warning. Transform is deprecated. Use set matrix instead. So I am in WheezyPrint, and this is, so I don't think there's anything I can do here. So I'm using, how are we getting here? We're in this PDFs package. We've got this HTML write PDF. Oh, actually, let's just go there. This is dumb. Report PDFs. Reports PDFs. That's where we want to go. And that was 105. 105. So HTML write PDF. But HTML is coming from WheezyPrint? What is this? Yeah. So this is from WheezyPrint itself. And they're complaining that I've got a deprecation warning from their own stuff. That doesn't make any sense to me. What's actually complaining? Oh, I see. So WheezyPrint ends up going to PyDYF, and PyDYF is what's complaining. Okay. So how do we fix this? We have the ability to ignore certain deprecation warnings. It's right here. I've got this in the PyTest configuration. So the way this works, this is an actual deprecation warning, not a pending deprecation warning. So let's take this, let's put a comment so we know which version this is that's complaining. Let's go back to PyProject, TOML. We'll see WheezyPrint is at 62.3. We'll say, I want a reminder of what the affected version was where we started ignoring this warning. So that we know in the future if we upgrade WheezyPrint, we can check it out and see if it's time to remove the warning, if it got fixed by the package. But essentially, it's a regular expression that we have to match. So we say ignore, it's a deprecation warning, and then we want to ignore some of the text that is actually in the message, and that will allow us to skip this out or remove this. So transform is deprecated is probably enough to get this appropriately. Transform is deprecated. Now I'll let the WheezyPrint developers go fix that on their own timeline, but we'll run the coverage check again and see how it goes. I suspect that everything should pass after that. I'm not doing anything crazy here. Although I did have one flaky test that's been popping up. Is it gonna come up again? Oh, I didn't do it right. What did I? Now it's a different deprecation warning. So okay, so it's getting through another one. You jerks. Text matrix. Text matrix. We'll just do this until the Wheezy print errors go away. I don't know. There's nothing I can do about these. It's like the package I depend upon doesn't have a version that is using the right APIs. So, I mean, I guess the thing I could do is I could pin a version of PyDYF, whatever that was, to an older version that doesn't have those warnings, but it's okay to have some warnings as long as I can comment that out. So now we've got what? We've modified the local makefile command, which is the one that I use regularly to run tests. What I don't know, this is an interesting thing to check out, test PDFs. So we've got this. Does my local test runner work? Should. Okay. This works because I activated the virtual environment for venv. So I can still run my test commands here, so that's good. And that's going to be important. I want to be able to do this. I want all of these commands that I would commonly run that are now going to be accessible through UV be prefixed with UV run. So let's do make coverage. That should work. The challenge is some of these makefile targets I also use in CI. So I will also have to update the CI file to install UV or something like that. It's going to take a little bit longer to run because it's doing coverage. It's also doing, when I run the coverage command, it runs with migrations, which is different. It's running to make sure that migration files actually work correctly. That's why it was slower to start. But that ran appropriately, so that feels good. I'm not going to worry about the graph command. I mean, I guess I can say UV run like that. It should be fine. I want to be able to deploy to Heroku, so I don't need to modify that. And local development. Boo. Boo. All right, we'll get to that in a second. Let's make sure we can do MyPy and documentation. And then I guess we can get rid of pip compile. We're not doing that anymore. But if we still need to deploy to Heroku, we still need to be able to generate the requirements TXT. So we'll leave that around for now. Hopefully we won't have to do anything. I'm on a 60-day timeline for this if I want to not be paying for both clouds. So I have a cloud, I have a droplet on DigitalOcean. But I just signed up for that DigitalOcean account. So I've got 60 days free with like a $200 credit. So there's no cost coming out of there. Heroku is actually running. I mean, I loaded the School Desk app. So you saw the main website. That is running and live and available for my users. I got to keep that running. If I go past the 60 days, I start paying for both. It's only an extra $5 or $6 a month, but don't really want to. So the objective is, can I do this whole cloud migration in a month or two? So let's do UV run, and I should be able to then come over here and say, what do I need to say? Make MyPy. Check that MyPy is working properly. And the nice part is I've wrapped these up in makefile targets so that like the UV run, if I had to type that out over and over again, that would get kind of annoying, my opinion. The reason that they have it is what they want, they being the team behind building UV, is they actually want teams to get away from activating virtual environments and instead just running things through UV, so you never have to modify your path. Because that's really what a virtual environment does, is if you use the activate command, like I did on, here, let me close this for a minute, just to show you. If I echo my path here, you'll see that what the activation did is it put my virtual environment bin directory on at the very beginning of the path before anything else. That's really what activation is all about. There might be some other little bits that it does, but that's the big stuff. Okay, so go back to the makefile, and we've got, we'll come back to local in a minute. Oh right, I forgot to give an alias for make test. So we've got this. We want to make sure that a documentation runs. So let's do UV. Ooh, that's going to be interesting. It's a makefile command, or make command with UV. What's it going to do with that? Make docs. Okay, cool. That's no problem with that. All right, it built everything that we wanted. Cool. And then this part, I don't think I need to change this because this is a static file server. There's no reason to change this. And then I think we can leave pip compile alone. That's kind of the legacy thing. The thing that we do need to do is fix local development. So I need to get off of Heroku. And that includes using Heroku's toolset. Heroku local, if you've never used it, Heroku works with like the 12-factor app model, which basically means they run with this proc file concept, where you say, here are the things that I want to run. And so we have a proc file for our development site that runs the actual web server, and then it runs this front end to actually make sure stuff is running, and so on. Here, let me just show it. Heroku local. And it runs, so basically a multi-process management tool. Interesting. Oh, we don't have a virtual environment activated. So I'll run it over here. Heroku local. This should work, I think. Yep. Okay. So it's starting up the web process. It will, in theory, start up the front end process too. I'm surprised there's no output from the front end. I don't know what's going on there. But if you need to run multiple processes at once, that's how Heroku works. That's its operating model. When we switch over to running on DigitalOcean, this operating with a proc file thing will go away. We'll do this with a different tool called Kamal, but we're really not at that stage yet. But we do want to be able to still run local development. And I'm trying to think, well, if local development is switching, yeah, I still need to be able to run the front end. So here's the challenge. Like my final deployment configuration is going to be just the web server running and SQLite, which will be loaded in process in memory. So there's not even a separate process running for that. But when I'm doing local development, I need to be able to have a process that is running to detect CSS changes, doing Tailwind stuff, and regenerating certain files. So that's why I actually had, when we were looking at that proc file, you see that there's like this npm run watch command. So really what the Heroku local is buying us is running just two things at once at the same time. We could do that with other tools. The one I'm thinking of is a tool that I used to use. It's called Honcho, which is like a Python version of Heroku local. The reason I used Heroku local is I was using Heroku anyway for like logging in and doing deployments and stuff. But if we're trying to get off of this tool, then we could replace this with what we want. But maybe it's not time to do that yet. So I think what I want to do, let's do this. This feels like a good checkpoint. Let's do this and then see how CI will fail, because I'm pretty positive it will. Get that stuff going. It's been a while since I run this, so since I have run this, so pre-commit is behind. This should just take a minute. There we go. Then we'll say prepare local environment for New, what should I call this? New deploy configuration? No, okay, stop being dumb. For UV. Okay, let's push it up. And within, I don't know, 2 minutes, we should have an answer on what's failing about CI. My hope is, what is my hope actually? I bet we can find examples of CI configuration that uses UV. Also, we can now get rid of Graphiz stuff. Ooh, this is nice. Now that I've got Graphiz out of here, I think all of this stuff this whole line can go away. And so I don't want to install from requirements anymore. Actually, a bunch of this might work. I don't know. No, it'll fail when it gets to certain aspects here. Okay, go check it out. Should already be dead. Yep, great. That didn't take long, 4 seconds. Oh, for the obvious reason that we got rid of this file, so that doesn't make any sense anymore. All right, so let's look quickly at what is going on. We want to see GitHub Actions UV. What I want to see. Using UV in GitHub Actions. This is the company. This is the group that's. I say company because I think they're a startup, Astral, that's trying to build Python tools. So I think they've got some stuff that we can take advantage of. So I know that we need UV to actually get this going. So I think these are the lines we're going to need. We can also check out v4. Let's go ahead and update. It's been a while since I've updated these things, so let's actually, it's not informative to say get the code. Let's just say uses, because that'll be clear enough. Let's switch it to version 4, and I think the fetch depth stuff is probably changed. Interestingly, by using UV, you can now even get rid of maybe the Python parts. Ooh, this is gonna be interesting. I think what I want to do before I nuke everything is comment some of these out so I can be reminded of what was in here before I go crazy with this stuff. We did modify the make my pi thing to assume that UV is going to be there, and we also did that for coverage. What we didn't do is we didn't do that for this check, so let's do UV run on this. And then we did modify, no, we didn't. We did something else here. Why didn't we use the makefile target for that? Makefile. So we have make docs, which runs make c docs HTML. We should totally be just running make docs. Make docs. Okay, cool. So we've got the right checkout. I think now is the time to put in UV. Got set up UV from Astral. Copy this, paste it in here. That looks right. Looks like what they have in the docs. And I don't want to set a specific version right now, right, for any particular reason. Python can be installed with UV Python install. Oh, okay. And cool. Look what it says. This will respect the Python version pinned in the project. So looking over at the PyProject file, you'll notice that it's saying requires Python 3.12 or greater. So that should do what we want there. So we want to have this thing, and this should basically replace the setup Python here. which is good. It looks a lot simpler. We're calling UV to tell it, hey, go ahead and install Python. Give us something to work with here. Then I'm not doing multiple versions of Python, so I don't need a Python test matrix, so that's not necessary. This would be necessary if you were building a library with UV, but doesn't make sense for what we're doing. So we can ignore that portion. And you could go from a Python version file, I guess, if you wanted to. Or you could use, if you're using setup Python, where you could go from Python by project file. Okay. So we need to say, here we go. We need this at least. So this is going to replace this line here, the install packages. So we've got UV sync is basically create a virtual environment that gets everything that's needed. I don't know what the all extras is doing. Actually, let's take a look. I want to understand this. This is fairly new to me too, so I want to understand some of these flags. Whoops. All extras. What are you? All optional dependencies. So I guess maybe what that means is, what would that mean? Is that like here, the SendGrid thing? Is that considered an optional dependency? Or TOML? I don't know. Should pay attention to this because it might affect what I get for my Dockerfile too. But at least we're also getting the dev dependencies. So maybe dev is by default. Omit development dependencies. So UV sync might actually be pulling in dev dependencies by default. So maybe there's a couple things I need to update for my Dockerfile, where it could be that I'm building into my Docker image the development dependencies, which I don't need, and so on. All right, stuff to learn still. So I think we've got a replacement for this section with this. I've gotten rid of Graphis completely. I think we can get rid of that. I don't regret deleting that portion. Then we've got the setup Python portion with the UV equivalent of it. But we have to make sure that UV itself is installed. And then we've got our actions that we've simplified and we've moved to version 4. The rest of this stuff is probably going to stay the same. Like for reasons I'm not going to get into, we need a site CSS file. We want to run the type checking. We want to run coverage. We want to check the deployment, and we've updated all that. So that feels good. So I'm going to commit it like this. If it goes well, then it'll be like, okay, I'll delete the commented out thing. So we'll leave that open. We'll say update CI. And we'll push that up. Last time this finished in all of 14 seconds, so we can very quickly review this. Let's actually scan through here while we're waiting, see if there's anything I missed. No, we're not installing a system Python. It may improve CI times to store UV's cache across workflow runs. Okay, why would we not want to do that? Well, that's interesting. I don't know what to cache though. Enable cache. Cache dependency glob. This is the file that we want to check for, which makes sense. So I might add that just after this just to check. Because it might speed this up a little bit. It's doing, well, is it worth it? So I think the install the project step was where it installed packages. And that took 5 seconds. So I don't really feel like I need to make that go faster. Not going to be worth it. And test took 42 seconds. I think it's all done. Are you done? You're done. Okay, cool. Let's get rid of this part. And I think that actually finishes one of the items. I guess if you have any questions, let me know. Like, it's a quiet chat, which is fine. I have nothing wrong with making a bunch of progress, getting stuff done, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you do have them. So let's see, 12:10. We just finished. Oops. Finish converting CI to use UV. And that fixes number 12:10. Right? Okay. Man, 12:10. Awesome. I've been doing this project a long time to have over 1,000 issues in it. Over 1,200, in fact. Although I guess a bunch of those are not just issues, they're like PRs and stuff. I think it's a shared numbering system. Okay. Next. I think I want to finish 12:06. I want to write another issue while I'm thinking about it. Dockerfile. Check what Python packages are installed. The important element is, can I trim out dev dependencies? What does all extras actually mean? That's what I want to know. Importantly, the reason I want to figure this out is I eventually need to like test various aspects of this. And the one that I'm worried about specifically, and I have already pointed it out, is this guy right here. So if all extras means, because this is okay, why do I think it's this? Maybe is a good place to start. If you talk about pip extras, there's an there's an extras require, yeah, extras require. I don't know if this one's going to show it. So whenever you have this like square brace stuff with something in between, that's considered an extra. And that's what I think that's why it is a hint to me that maybe this is not actually installed unless I do the all extras flag, which is frankly pretty bizarre. Like if I said this is a dependency, why would you not install this? I would love to like not have to include this and not have to think about this fact, but don't get it. So perhaps in fact, let's see if we can resolve this now, because that one's going to bug me and I'm going to forget about it. Let's do all extras. Pip compile. Blah blah blah. Settings. I don't know. That's no strip extras. By default, okay. UV strips extras, as any packages pulled in by the extras are already included as dependencies in the output file directly. Huh. So maybe what I want to check, okay, we have a way to verify this, actually. It's good. So we've got Django AnyMail. Let's go to Django AnyMail. GitHub. Oh, have I done this before? Django AnyMail. Django AnyMail? Oh boy. AnyMail. Oh, okay, that's why I couldn't find it. It's anymail.dev. So let's go to their GitHub project. That's their documentation directory. And they are not using, they're using Hatch as their way to build stuff. So everything should be in here as their PyProject TOML for building this library. Then there will probably be an extras section. Oh, are you kidding me? So it doesn't mean anything. That's annoying. Why would you even say that then? I guess they're kind of letting you opt into that in the eventuality that maybe they have specific dependencies. That's not cool, in my opinion. All right, so I don't have to fret about this. Maybe let's check out white noise. So, okay, so the reason I'm not stopping at the binary one is ultimately I want to get rid of Postgres. So I don't really care about PsychoPG binary support, but I do care about Brotli because white noise is what handles static files from my Django app, and it does Brotli compression, which is faster. So I do want to actually have this. Let's check and see if UVlock has Brotli. It does as its own thing. So that tells me that whatever I am interpreting all extras to mean doesn't mean what I think it means. We are in fact getting everything that is needed from those packages, so I feel good about that. And it makes me question, like, why is all extras over here? What do I need that for? I want to, okay. Tell me one more time. What did it say? Include all optional dependencies. Oh, maybe it's from my own PyProject TOML. Oh, I bet that's it. So, as we just saw, you can have optional dependencies in your, this is a PyProject TOML, and this is a project optional dependencies section. So maybe it's saying like you can have your own. And my PyProject TOML, whoops, not the file I wanted to bring up, does not have that. I only have deb dependencies. So I don't think I need this. In fact, I want to get rid of it because I don't want to confuse myself. Like, what is that? All right, so let's assume that that's gonna work properly if we get rid of that, and then we'll check on CI a little bit later. Okay. Then we need to be able to do what? We still have to do, is npm even on this machine? It is. We have that procfile dev file, and it's got npm run watch. Let's try and run that from here and see what happens. Okay. So it's doing what I expected. Frankly, it's showing more output than we saw when we ran Heroku local, which I don't really understand why. But this is the behavior that I expect to see. It's basically watching for, if I modify a template, update the CSS file. That's the whole point of it. We want something similar here. So here, let's do this. I want to do uv add, and then this is a new dev dependency, and I want to add a dependency called Honcho, which should be like Heroku local. So now we've got Honcho, and I should be able to say uv run honcho.help or -help, and you can see which file we're going to pull from. So there's the proc file. So now we can keep all of this. I think we might want to get rid of the release command there. I don't know that we actually want that. I don't even know why I kept it in the dev proc file. It doesn't make sense. But let's go to the make file. Let's go to Heroku local here, and let's change this to uv run honcho, and get rid of this local subcommand. Tell it we want to run that procfile dev file and see what it does. So this was actually our default target. So let's just run make and see how it goes. The following, oops, nope, I guess we need to say run, honcho run. Honcho has subcommands. Or what's run versus start? It might be honcho start. Honcho, yeah, run a command versus start the application. So pretty sure it's start, not run. Make. Okay. Oh, interesting. So it started up the system. It started all three of these. I actually really like Honcho. I used it for a long time, and then switched to Heroku Local when I was just doing Heroku stuff. But it's pretty great. So it's telling us very clearly it started all three of these things. And the funny part is, like, we ran that release command, which did run the migration. Cool, great. There were some migrations that need to be applied to the local database. But the release command ends. It says it's designed to end. The way release works on Heroku is that it saves that, it splits that from the rest of your proc file. And so after Heroku deploy packages up everything and is about ready to turn it on, then it runs the release command. That's why I have migrations in there. For local development, the way these kind of tools are designed to run is they assume that the process is going to run kind of continuously. That's the whole point of this. So when this process exited, Honcho interpreted that as like, oops, something failed. I'm assuming everything is a system and needs to be running at the same time. Let me go ahead and shut everything down because something failed to start up correctly. So that's why the system sent a sig term, sent the sig term signal to both the web and the front end and shut them down, and then finally stopped. What we need to do is, in our proc file over here, which is a different proc file from the one that runs in production on Heroku, is get rid of that command. Versus, like, if you look over here, we just have the two. We have that release command, then we tell the web worker to go. So now we should be able to run Honcho, and the two things should run properly. So the change we've introduced is we brought Honcho back into the equation as a dev tool. We've updated our make file to the appropriate thing. And we can run independently of the Heroku tooling now, which is nice. Okay, so that fixes another one of these. Not that one. That fixes, I think that was 1206. I think that was everything in there, right? Let's review one last time. Deploy is still the old command. We don't want to run that through UV. There's no benefit from there. And then the pip one is another one we're going to leave around. Frankly, I forgot that one was in here. I think I was doing a pip compile by hand. Oh well. Okay. So let's do this and finish migration to non-Heroku local tools. That fixes number 1206. Frankly, part of me likes having more of just a Python toolchain anywhere. It simplifies a fair amount of the stack as much as we can. Okay. What shall we work on next? At some point tonight, we need to actually check that the Docker image runs and runs in a way that actually lets us test things. We take a look. So I copied the Dockerfile from the stream that I've done the last couple of weeks, which is fine. But you can see, if you look at the bottom, you can see that it's using run server. And that is not my preference. I want to be able to use Gunicorn, which is my main development server, because that's what I want to. I don't want to be using run server in my final deployment target. This is the actual thing I want to run is Gunicorn instead. So let's not use a development server for this. So I want to switch this to Gunicorn eventually. Frankly, with the same flags that are in my proc file. It's like, this should be the same configuration. Gunicorn, project.uwizgy workers2 log file dash, all of that stuff. And we should get evidence that that is able to run the Dockerfile from SQLite. I think everything should be hunky-dory to do that. That's the plan. But I don't know that we need to do that yet. The other thing that we can do, maybe we can go ahead and do the 12.11 one, the Dockerfile check. So yeah, let's do this. Well, first let's make sure the action worked. We made a little change to the actions thing. Okay, so that worked fine. Looks like, hey, this actually, CI has gotten faster with this too, which is one of the benefits of UV. If we go to like the UV main page site, it highlights how fast it is. That's really cool. It's really fast at installing a lot of packages. 10 to 100 times faster than pip. Great. Depends on what you have to do. Okay, so let's move on. We've got Docker running still over here. This was for our Kamal demo. And I think it's time now to add to our makefile a different makefile target. So what target do I need? I want to have the ability to build one of the targets. It's not. Let's use that. That's the most natural one. I want to have a build target. And the purpose of having the build target is to make an image that we can test locally. So I've got Docker now. It's here. And I've got Docker Compose. A Docker Compose file, whoops, exists over here. That there it is. That will actually let us run the local web app on port 8000. So we want to come in here and we want to say Docker Compose build, and then I think I need to give it a dot. And oh shoot, is that? Do you have to tag that, or is it going to get tagged automatically? I don't know. So before we actually run this, let's check Docker images and see what's here. So we've got Kamal that we downloaded from an image. There's some build kit stuff, Alpine, and then this Kamal demo. So it's not a lot on this machine, which is good because Docker images are like storage hogs. So let's do make build and see how it goes. Boo. Okay. No such service. Maybe it's the no dot. Oh yeah. It's been a while since it hasn't been actually that long, but I ran the command without knowing what the options were. I think we don't need the dot, because that the service would specify like web or DB or something like that, but we want to build them all. Let's ditch that. Make build. We could fix that warning later. I've got an env file, and the env file has some $signs in it. And the $signs, they are like part of a secret key, and it's trying to, so what it thinks is a variable is just what follows the $sign, which is pretty dumb. Anyway, Docker. Well, that's nice. I hate that little version attribute, so we can get rid of that. That's great. Docker Compose version. Talk to me about it. Huh. Docker Compose version. You gonna say don't use this anymore? They find a way to get rid of this? Oh, that's like a command. Not what I want. Compose file reference. Here's what we want. version. The top level version property defined by the compose specification for backwards compatibility is only informative, and compose doesn't use version but prefers the most recent schema. So I get the impression that we can just get rid of version, which is awesome, because it was just an annoying little attribute that like periodically I'd have to update. But maybe what they're saying now is that, hey, we've stabilized enough, so we don't need to do that anymore. Oh, it was still building an image. Okay. Hopefully it's cached everything now. That's annoying. Okay, let's try running make build again. Sweet. It's not complaining about that file. The other bit of this, I want to come into the env example, and you'll be able to see, so the secret key, here's where it was complaining. Complaining the fact that I've got like the warning that we saw, L_1E, is these are all valid variable characters. And so the $ is saying like, oh, these 4 things must be a variable. That's dumb and annoying. I just generated that key, so let's switch the $ to something else. There was another one for FW here. This is my example file, so I have a feeling that that's not going to work. The challenge is if I change this for the env file, the local dev database is going to be invalidated in a bunch of ways. The secret key is annoying to change. Yeah, still got the warning, so I got to go change it in the actual env file. So let me put this on for just a second. I'm going to make the same change that you just saw on these little helpers, and maybe there's not anything actually secret in here, but I'm going to assume for the time being that there is. I'll bring this back. Whoops, that was not the secret screen. That was the ending screen. Whoops. Sorry, y'all. Okay, so if I run it again, now there's no warnings. That's good. Okay, so got some layers, yada, yada, yada. Let's take a look at Docker images and see what it's been doing. So it created, this is the annoying part, is like it's creating these tags that have nothing in them. These might have been like the old homeschool web versions, and then it got rid of that image. I don't know, move the tag name. I have no idea what it did. So we're creating a bunch of junk here. Every time we do this, we're creating like and I'm not sure how much is getting shared. So like we're filling up very quickly for stupid stuff. That's what I hate about Docker. Just, yeah, I don't know what else to say. So let's check out Docker compose run. And we want to remove the container if it's done. We want to run the web container for this particular Docker file, and we want to run bash. This brings us here. Back to let's do. That's a lot to type out. Let's add a new one for, which I'll probably forget, but hey, it's be nice to try to have this. We want to run, we want web, we want bash. Make shell. And the thing I wanted to do is I want to go over to user local where the packages got installed, and I want to go into lib python site packages. And what I don't want to see is, yep, okay, these are not what I want to see. PyTest. I don't want to see dev packages are in here. So instead here, let's go back into the Dockerfile, and when we get to the UV sync, let's do, shoot, how do we do, can we do, UV sync? Because there's that frozen flag. What does the frozen thing do? I don't remember. I was copying some of this stuff. Oh, don't update the UV log file. Omit the development dependencies. That's the big thing. So no dev. No dev. And we'll, I guess, hopefully it'll be enough that enough of a size change that we'll be able to see this in the image size after building. I guess we'll find out. Ooh. We might need this later. Ooey. Because why? Hi project. We see how we have Sphinx here? We're going to have to use Sphinx to build the documentation, to build into the image. Oh, but I've put this up in the dependencies and not as a dev dependency. Yeah, maybe that's an okay workaround for that. So I'm basically saying I don't want all of these things to be in my image. There's no reason to have any of these things into the image. None at all. So make build. Hopefully on the other side, we'll get a slightly smaller image, but it might be smaller by like a megabyte. So 455, something like that. I don't know why that took so long. So the other bit that we might want to do at some future point is that Docker, this step, there's a way for UV. UV is like supposed to be super fast. And the way it does that is with some caching. But from the Docker side, there's no UV cache area available. So it has to go out and download everything again. So we probably want to do a little bit of caching quickly there. Because overall that took 81 seconds. That was, and then a bunch of those seconds, like most of them, 52 of them, is that right? Yeah, 52 of them were spent installing Python packages. We can do way better. We should. All right, but now if we take a look at Docker images, at the very least, we should have a smaller image. Yeah, ooh, smaller by a lot. That dropped. That is very surprising. That dropped off 62 megabytes. Jeez. What was in those dev packages? Okay, that's great. All right, so let's see if we can optimize one little bit here. There's Docker. How do we optimize the caching? Caching. A cache mount can be used to improve performance across builds. So I don't understand this command. This what a -- mount means. Type cache. I don't know if is the target inside of the image or is it outside on my main operating system. Don't get it. Root cache UV. If you're not mounting the cache, image size can be reduced by using the no cache flag. Well, did I have to do something to eliminate cache stuff? Okay, so this is the UV sync. That's where they're telling us to run this. So let's see what happens if we take this right here and just plop it in. Okay. So now we've added the cache line. We know that the image size is 402. We want to do make build. We might need to run this a couple times to get the benefit of the cache. I don't know how that's going to work. Because I don't know where it's putting this cache. Is it like Docker is storing a cache for us? All right, let's see if we can look this up. Come on, Docker. Or come on, ChatGPT. There we go. In Docker run, what does mount with type equal cache do? Where is the cache stored? Okay, let's let it generate an answer. We got 40 seconds, but my hope is that next time is the one that's faster. It should be faster by a lot if the cache is to be believed. I hope what's happening is that Docker is trying to set aside some space for a cache somewhere, and that this will then be tapped into on the next build. See if it'll go faster. All right. In Docker, the mount option with type equal cache is used during a run step to persist and reuse cache data between builds. This can be especially useful when you want to cache dependencies or files that don't change often, speeding up subsequent builds. Okay, makes sense. Mount with type cache, purpose of caches directories, yada yada. Okay, root cache pip install. In this example, the cache is stored at /root.cache inside the container, which means files there, like downloaded packages, will be cached and reused in subsequent builds. The target is the directory inside the container where the cache should be used. Okay. So what did that mean for Docker image size? Whoa, continues to shrink. Don't get it. What's going on? Why did that shrink stuff? All right, let's try running it again, see if we're like way faster. So that time took 66 seconds. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, 3.6. That was totally worth it. Nope. Docker images. Oh, everything was cached. Okay. Boop, boop, boo. So I didn't think it had anything to do. So there's nothing to prove there. Let's see. I want to just like put a layer in here, do an LSAL. Just so that there's something that should break. Like, I think when you add a command, the caching works such that like if you modify something out here, it kind of assumes that steps downstream of that are then invalidated. So if that's true, if I understand that correctly, then putting a step here will cause this to be invalidated, and it should rerun this, but this is where I want to see if there's any savings there. So make build that. Yep, so now we're running, but still 1.9 seconds to do that. And now the slow part is actually doing the collect static call. So that's way better than the 66 seconds from before. About half the time. Awesome, I like it. So that is a very worthwhile change. Okay, the other thing I want to do is delete that line at the bottom. That's useless. And then we want to do docker compose up. See if this thing actually runs. Nope. Whoa, that's not good. Oh, okay. Now we're getting into Wheezy print land. Shoot. I forget how. Okay. Or maybe I never had to deal with it. Could be that the Heroku build pack did some stuff for us in terms of packages that WheezyPrint needed, because it was so common for Python projects to have some kind of, it may not just be WheezyPrint. So WheezyPrint is a PDF tool for making PDF files, and kind of like it's got a rendering engine, stuff like that. So it very well could be that there's some stuff in here that I didn't know I was even depending on from Heroku that was coming for free. All right, well, that's interesting. Let's go get them. I already have a place where we are adding apt tools here. The challenge, hard to put comments like in the middle of this stuff. I don't think that would work. I think it's like this is a continuation line, so we can't just say this, you know, here's the dependencies for curl and here are the dependencies for WheezyPrint. Gotta put it like above the command, but that's okay. So let's go to WheezyPrint. Let's start getting rid of some of these other tabs. Still using that one. That. Okay, probably good enough now. WheezyPrint. Thank you. Tell me more. First steps. Depends upon, wow, that's a bunch of stuff. Tell me what it depends on in Ubuntu, please. Pango view. Because really, I have a sense that it's probably saying I depend upon all of these things, but some of these things are probably dependencies of other things. Shoot. Okay, let's look for, okay, we'll keep going. Nice. Debian. To install WheezyPrint inside a virtual env using wheels, if possible, you'll need these. Python 3. Why do I need Python 3 pip? Oh, I don't need that. I think I need these. Okay, let's use these. And I first want to do, say, WheezyPrint dips, and then I'll paste these here, and then I want to paste them a second time, all in one line, so that there'll be a symmetry that I can see of like, oh, these things are for WheezyPrint. Okay. You can tell I didn't even try and run the Docker image itself previously. Okay, so that didn't work. Let's make a build and get those extra packages. Now we're getting curl and libpango, libpango-ft, libharfbuzz, subset 0. I don't know what those things are. Well, Pango is a font rendering thing, if I remember correctly. I don't know what harfbuzz is. Awesome. That cache, that second cache is so great. With any luck, that will be everything needed for WheezyPrint. But it said it needed pillow too, which is like, huh. But pillow, I bet the pillow is in UV lock. Pillow, yep. We are getting pillow just by installing WheezyPrint. So let's try Docker Compose up again and see if it gets going this time. Font config error. No writable cache directories. Okay, I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's necessary for WheezyPrint to do its thing. Find out. Pandoc. It's not just a WheezyPrint problem. Apparently it's also in Pandoc. Or LaTeX. Trying to see, can we specify a cache directory somewhere? I don't really want to give a bunch of write access to different spots in the image. Okay, let me just write an issue. I think this is not an issue I want to be solving today. It's kind of boring, frankly. So cloud migration, we need to check WheezyPrint. Does it work? And let's go ahead and put the error that we see. This seems like a WheezyPrint problem. Can it work without the cache directory? I don't know. We're gonna find out later, I guess. All right, but it is running. It's running with the settings file. Running on port 8000. Docker Compose is, I assume, using port 8000. Actually, let me jump over to secrets. There's a, see that view config thing? I want to see what that is. I'm gonna hit O, but I don't want to dump out a bunch of secrets if they are there. Oh, this took me to like actually Docker Compose itself. That was interesting. That will do it again. Yep. All right, I'll bring it back. There's nothing to see here. Brought up this file. I don't know why I would care to see this particular file, whatever. So let's go to, we've got this mapped port 8000. Localhost 8000. Nice. So it appears to be running. I've got a new secret key, but that shouldn't matter. Oh boy. What should matter is I don't remember the user account. Oh, it's my other app that so my other app I'm like, what's my user account? And then I have it right in my README. I never remember. Okay. I don't feel like we need to log in. We've got proof positive that there's some amount of the app that's working locally, which is great. I have a feeling though, if I go to blog, it's gonna be like, I don't have that. So blog is broken, that's known. The same thing would be true of the documentation. Oh, why do you have the documentation? Oh, because you know what happened is I ran that Sphinx command earlier, and the Docker Compose file has a volume map to from everything in the project directory to /app, and there's a path match literally to the place where the generated docs go. And the fact that it could find it locally meant that the documentation did not fail here. In a real deployed system, this wasn't going to work. Okay. So we didn't get any good answers from that quick search. Okay. And we did get enough here to give me confidence that we could at least install WheezyPrint. Where does that leave us now? I think that's everything for 12.11. No, it's not. The last thing we want to do is mimic Gunicorn. So let's stop using run server and start using Gunicorn. See how it goes. And we might run into like maybe the static files. No, we have the static files built as part of the Docker image. That should be okay. Gunicorn project WSGI is where the settings are. We want -- workers. We want a 2. I think I could do equal to. Maybe I will do equal to. And then -- log file equal dash. Do I want that style? I don't know. Let's see. We'll see. Let's do a build, which should just change the command. This should run really quickly, I would think. At collect static, there's no way to really cache that, as far as I can tell. Docker compose up. So now we're using Gunicorn on port 8000, and I can see immediately that's using Gunicorn rather than the Django run server. Let's try here, localhost 8000. Oh no. Connection was reset. By what? That makes no sense. Reset while the page was loading. Oh, sad. Is it this no writable cache thing is biting us? I don't know. Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those. What happens if we're gonna get a 9th one if we refresh? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What is going on? Oh. Maybe I see. So this is running at localhost on the container, not doing broadcast. Okay. I think that's the problem. Okay. So if we do uv run Gunicorn H, we should see where the host goes, or bind. So that's the one we're missing. So it's binding to localhost, and the container is running things on its own operating system. So the binding at the broadcast address is not working. That's my belief. So let's come in here and add one more setting, and that's going to be -- bind equal where'd it go? There it is. 0, 0, 0, 0 for the broadcast address. and then on port 8000. Okay. Now, let's do a make build again. Hopefully, it does the right thing that we want this time. So now over here, we want Docker compose up. We're now at the broadcast address of 0000, port 8000. We go back over to here, refresh. Awesome. There we go. That's what I expect. Cool. That is really going to bug me, but we're not going to finish the migration without fixing this. I gotta believe that there's some way, there's gotta be some like environment variable somewhere where I can carve off a little bit of space being like, hey, you want to write your font config stuff somewhere? Put it over here. But I don't want to solve that problem today. Okay. We don't need, this is from last week. So we're going to use Kamal later. And I did a bunch of research on Kamal. The interesting part about this is I'm also watching DHH, David Heinemeier Hansen, write on X about a new version of Kamal that's coming out. And when I launched, when I did my little demo with Kamal, it used traffic as the proxy to do like no downtime deploys. But it sounds like Kamal version 2, which is coming out very soon, is getting rid of traffic and using their own Kamal proxy thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of changes are there once the actual thing is live. So I suspect the way he's hyping it up is that it will come out while I'm trying to do this migration. And so we might have to learn, go from kind of Kamal 1 to Kamal 2 and see if there are any differences in settings. Now, thankfully, here, we don't have yet any Kamal configuration. So I can maybe hold off like another week or two before we commit to doing that and trying to move that. There's some other stuff that we can do with building docs and blog and JavaScript, yada yada, before we try to deploy. In fact, I should probably go ahead and write test deployment on DigitalOcean as like a thing to do. Need to check that the deployment to DO works. So that's on our to-do list. Okay, so where are we now? We've updated the secret key to take out the $signs. We've added Wheezy print dependencies for this particular app. We've cached the UV stuff, and we set no dev dependencies. No dev dependencies actually took the image size down considerably. And then we switched from the run server to Gunicorn. And that's good for our configuration. I think there's also, what am I trying to think of? There's some reload information somewhere. Where'd that go? Thought I had some kind of information to trigger Gunicorn to reload on changes, but I don't remember where. Too many dang files. This is the other problem with the Heroku deployment is Heroku works by conventions and expects files to be in certain places. And because I needed to do three things, I needed to do Hugo, I needed to do Go basically, and JavaScript and Python. I used 3 different build packs in Heroku. I ended up having to keep a lot of files like at the top level of the directory. So you see like this whole mess load of configuration files. Some of these are this one runtimes Heroku, this setup config thing, it probably can go away with rough, I don't know. There's a bunch of these in here, like this post CSS is for the front end stuff, the package files, those things I would like to stuff them away in their own little space so that they don't need to be at the top level and kind of clean up who owns what. It's hard to see, frankly, like what are the relevant bits in different spots, but that's just how it is for now. Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Got our new targets. We got rid of the version thing. Cool. So I think that's going to do it for this Docker one that we had, 12.11. For now. Update Dockerfile to get it working at a basic level that fixes number 12.11. All right. One last thing that I want to start, I want to show that I'm going to start on and then maybe just do the rest of it off stream because it's not going to be really exciting. I'm going to switch the tool that I use to manage environment variables. So let's talk about the current tool that I have. The current tool is still gotta get used to my head. The current tools I'm using is Django Environ, and I'm not going to dump on Django Environ. It has served me well for many years. We can see it. We go to the settings file. You'll see it immediately. So that's this Environ thing here, and you use Environ to create this env object. And the env object then has you use all of these configuration options for anything that you want to be able to have a default value. It's put here. Then later on, with this env object, you can kind of reference that thing down like here. You say, give me this variable, basically. While this is okay, what's one of the downsides here? There's a couple of downsides. One is like, you cannot look at this and see what is this data type. Now you might be able to, you can probably guess for the most of the cases, but it's not immediately obvious. The other thing that's not obvious by looking at one of these lines is you don't know what the default value is. The default value is up here at the top. So if it has a default value, it's separated by a certain amount of distance. So instead, there is a cool tool. Well, actually, let's go to the awesome Django list that Will Vincent puts together. Thanks, Will. And you can see it under this section. There's Django Environ. But here is the one that I want to switch to, called Environs. And why do I want to switch to this one? Well, really to address the things that I just talked about. The difference is the way this one works, we can probably find an example very quickly, is you can see here that you create this env thing. And so it looks similar, kind of, to what is over here. So instead of, env with a bunch of things, you would just create env with no options. And then you can read from the .env file by calling this function. But the nice benefit of this is that when you actually get down to using it, if you want to get type information, you or know exactly what kind of type the thing that you're going to pull out of the environment is going to be, then it's very clear. Like, this is going to be an integer because that's how it's cast. It's going to be cast to an integer. There's some that are these This one's going to be a Boolean value. There's a path. There's all sorts of different converters here. In fact, it lists this long list of converted types, which is pretty cool, pretty powerful. The other aspect, like I said, is that it can include the default value. So if this thing doesn't exist in the environment, enable feature X, what should its value be? Which is what is on the right-hand side of these tuple pairs. So the default value for any mail account default HTTP protocol is going to be HTTPS. But I would love to see that right with where the variable is declared in the settings. So that's what I want to switch to get the benefit of this. And that's the thing we're going to do. That's what I have marked as issue. I thought, oh, I have it in here. This one, 1209. I want to switch to this tool. I think it's just going to make it easier to manage environment variables in the future. So let's start that process. I don't expect to finish it on stream. In fact, I'm going to wrap up right after I get one or two of these done to give a sense of how that works, and then we'll call it an evening, and then pick up next week on how to do more of this migration. So let's take a look at where we need to go. We need to do UV add, and this is not going to be a developer dependency. So we want to do UV add environs. And that's going to give us a specific version. So they're saying greater than or equal to 11 as the way to start. So that's embedded here now in my virtual environment right away. And I can go over to this, and I should be able to say import environs. And the challenge with this is like the migrating of this is going to be a little bit annoying. So yeah, we'll just deal. So we want to do, let's pick the most obvious one, which is going to be debug. Okay. So I want to call this, what's a good name in the interim? While I'm migrating, I'm going to do something silly. We'll call this env, I guess. And we will do environs.env, all that. And then we want to do the next thing out of this. I did do this on my Kamal demo project, so we can take a look really briefly. Demo. Come on. What? GitHub, MB Layman, Kamal. And when this loads up, we're going to have the project we can go to. Wow, my download rate is atrocious. Okay, there we go. And we can see we're using environs, and we just call read env immediately. It's going to look for an env file. So we'll say env read env. After this is done, I'm going to come back through and drop the underscore env. It's stupid to have that repetitiveness, but I need to differentiate between the old system and the new. All right, so now when we go down to debug, what we want to do is switch this to env, and we want to use a Boolean type. And I want to say that the Boolean, when it is not specified, it should be false. So at this stage, debug is here, and I can get rid of that because we've migrated it to the other system. So we should just be able to delete that. So let's try it and make sure that everything's working as we expect. So we want to see this read from the env file. Let me see what it actually is in the env file. I'm going to put on the secrets screen for just a moment. Check in here. The debug value is set to on, so it should be true, which would confirm that it's different from the default. I bring this back. I'm going to run make, which will give us honcho locally, and then we can go over to port 8000 and refresh this. Unable to connect. Why? Oh, we're on a different port. It's on port 5000. Why are you on port 5000? What? That's going to be annoying. Change that immediately. Dockerfile. What the heck? What the heck? 5000. Where are you? Where's this coming from? Is that the No. No. Is that the default? Was that the default? UV run. Is that what they said it was and I just wasn't paying attention? It's binding to 8000. Where's that 5000 coming from? What? Gunicorn conf? Do I have one of those files? I don't remember. I think I have a reload in here somewhere, but I couldn't remember. No? I don't know. Where, oh, where are you from? Zero, 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 5000. Okay. 0. 0.0.0.0. There shouldn't be too many of those, right? Now, there's more of them than I would like to confess. Okay, those are spaces, y'all. I want a literal 0, 0, 0.0. Wow, I just don't know. How about reload? Or actually, let's do one more thing. There might be a hidden file, and ripgrep doesn't look for hidden files automatically. Or no, that's not the way. It's not A. It's dash dot. Okay. So there's a commit here. There's the settings file, and there's the Docker file. All right. Gunicorn. This is really puzzling me, so I want to know. Configuration. That's not right. I really don't like this theme. Old school though. Why? Okay. Whatever. Bind. Bind. It's telling me the default port is 8000. But what the heck is telling us 5000? Where's that coming from? All right, let's change it. I don't care. We're on the proc file dev. We're going to do bind 0, 0, 0, 0, 8,000. I want that to be on the same port as the Docker file, because if I want to, I want to be able to like switch between them and try periodically run against the container to see if things check out, especially when we want to make modifications to the container image. I need to make sure that what the outcome is works easily, and it'd be easier if it's all in the same port, because then the SQLite database and all of this stuff will line up with cookies and a bunch of things like that. So I don't want to have to fiddle with switching between 5,000 and 8,000. That's silly. Okay, so now we are on port 8,000. That was weird. Okay, so session data corrupted. Whatever, I don't care. Get out. I think that's because we switched the secret key. So that's why it's commenting on corruption there. So what are we left with? We've got the proc file. The whole reason we were starting that, sorry. We were starting that to make sure that it was still in debug mode, that the debug setting was set to true, and we didn't actually verify that. Oops. So localhost port 8,000. Go over here. I don't have the debug toolbar on, but we saw that the blog was blowing things up. So if debug mode is still on, this will fail and see something. Okay. Seeing this, look at this line at the bottom. You're seeing this error because you have debug equal true. So if it wasn't the default, then that wouldn't have worked. Now I do want to verify, in fact, that it is going to be false when debug is not present. So let's stop this. Let's go back to the env file. I'm going to put this on for a moment. Go to where debug is. I'm going to comment it out completely. So it's going to basically be not present. I'm going to go out of this file, back to the example, run, make again. And so now we're firing it up. Oh, I can already tell different behavior. So there's no static files right now. So it's like trying to run in its actual static files mode configuration. So I can't do that. Let's try and refresh here, and we'll just see a straight up error, 404. That's what that basically is. I think. It might have failed before that. It's doing the error because it can't find static files. Okay, that's expected. So I have confidence that our default value over here is working as we anticipate. So let me remember to go ahead and turn this back right now. Switch this back on. So we now have debug mode back on. And what we're left with is an example of using environs. And frankly, I find it just really quick and convenient. And I think what it's going to do is it's one of my grievances with, that's a very strong word. One of my, the point that I didn't like about Django Environ is this separation from having the default value way up here and then like the actual usage way down here. And so bringing those things a lot closer together will be very nice. So we've got one example of that. We are now updating the UV lock file for that thing, and that's all cool. So let's say add and start using environs. And we want to say what number this is going with. It's going with 12, what was that, 09? Yep, 1209. Okay. So that's pushed up. And I think that's going to wrap us up for this evening. So we've started on this path to cloud migration. There's still a bunch of steps to go to prepare even the Docker image, because the setup that we're going to run is a DigitalOcean droplet. We need a Docker image, and we're going to use this tool called Kamal, which will take the image, put it up to a registry, and then allow the server to pull it down. And then the server is going to use Docker to run the actual application. It's going to be talking over SQLite. So we're on that path. But I need to, before we even get over here to the server, we need to make sure that the container image is kind of in the state we want it to be, that we think it's going to go ahead and work correctly. So there's some layers in that need to be built in terms of styling and extra documentation files and so on and so on. And without that, it's not going to be the image that we need. So it's not, we need more testing. I'm going to finish this conversion to environs. I'll probably do that offline, and because it's just more of the mechanics that we went through. It's a very trivial change, really. And that will allow me to remove Django environ. And then when we come back next time, I think we want to finish off the Docker image. And then I want to, I don't know what will be the right sequence next. Maybe we invest in this step of like, okay, it's time to figure out how to convert a Postgres database to SQLite. That might be an important step. I'm a little wary of that because the best data source that I can think of is to actually pull down a copy of the production data. The problem with that is that it's real user data, and that's something that people put their faith and trust in me that I'm not going to share that. So, like, as much as I enjoy streaming, I'm very sensitive about someone else's data. Like, that's none of your business, frankly. It's barely even my business. I try not to pay attention to the data as much as possible. So it's nothing against you specifically. It's more that I think privacy is merited here. So I might do this one offline and just describe the process after I figured it out, and then we can work on other pieces of this deploy. We'll have to do some CMAL setup and get a server going, so that'll be something to do there. So I think that'll call it for the night. Thank you for tuning in. Love it if you give a thumbs up or a subscribe or something like that on the channel, and I'll catch you again next week. Take care.